So then when they called my name, I just started to clap and I was like, well done, well done. And all the other competitors was looking around, and then one of them looked at me and they were like, isn't your name Roger Snipes? I was like, yeah, that's right. And I continued to clap, still not paying attention to what happened. And then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's me. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And I was almost in tears because I really couldn't believe that I'd won this competition, like my first competition. And
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Food School Smarter, Stronger, Leaner podcast on a mission to change the way the world eats. Guys, my name is Angela Shurina. I'm a certified nutritionist, health, nutrition, performance, and productivity coach, helping people like you to learn how to use nutrition as a tool to feel, look, and do your absolute best every day. Guys, today is Friday and the weekend is upon us, and then we have a week before Christmas, and then Christmas week, and then it's 2022, for which I'm sure you already set inspiring, aspiring goals, created visions, and you can't wait to get after them. And today's episode, guys, gonna help you to get after your goals sooner and with more motivation, with more focus, and maybe a little bit wiser, a little bit more inspired, maybe a little bit crazier, dreaming bigger, but at the same time using your head to design some strategies and action steps to achieve your goals in a smarter, simpler, more effortless, more effective way. Guys, on today's episode, we have a guest, and I'm so pumped and inspired and excited to introduce this guest to you and help you to learn more from him. Today on my show, we have Roger Snipes joining me, and Roger Snipes has quite a story. You know, he started with humble beginnings in many years ago in challenging circumstances, and what he transformed his life and his body, his fitness, his mind into, it's just phenomenal. And Roger Snipes now, he has his own Wikipedia page, so kind of a celebrity, and it's all well deserved. You know, I love these stories of self-made people where they utterly transform and surpass all the expectations that the world could have set for them, right? So Roger, he got quite a lot of titles in physique competitions world, or fitness competitions, bodybuilding, fitness modeling. He, after competing, he became a fitness entrepreneur, a coach, helping his clients to reach their potential, to build their full potential from inside out, from starting from the mind and building it up, transforming their lives, right? Roger Snipes is a published author. Your mind builds your body. Unlock your potential with biohacking and strength training, showing you how you can do the same, how you can build a phenomenal physique without performance enhancing drugs, and how you can naturally get into the best shape of your life and change your mindset and fitness for life. Roger Snipes has his own podcast, the Roger Snipes Show, where he interviews the world's leading experts, from neuropathic medicine professionals to entrepreneurs, a lot of them really successful people who we all have to learn a lot from. Roger is curious about life, lifelong learner, and he believes that you don't need to have all your ducks in a row to make decisions and ultimately succeed, make a decision and all your ducks will line up eventually. Jump from the hills and grow your wings on the way down. There are so many things that you're going to learn, guys, about building your physique fitness, but also in the process, building your mindset to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve in life. And we also, of course, going to talk about Roger's favorite exercises and nutrition strategies and his mind-brain training routines and exercises and tools he uses, and so many stories. Roger is such an amazing conversationalist and storyteller. So it's going to be a fun episode from which you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to be inspired to get after your own potential. So without further ado, guys, let me introduce to you Roger Snipes and enjoy. Enjoy, learn, and grow. If you were to describe yourself to a person and what you did in this world, what would you say?
Wow, you know what? I think it's something that I need to refine and really come up with my own little introduction, because it's one of those where I've never sat down and really packaged it as, okay, this is me. I feel as though I'm on a journey of self-discovery, still trying to figure out a lot of things. When you ask someone, what is it you do? It's like, I don't put myself in any particular box, because it's like, I feel as if I do a lot of things. But I like to treat this whole journey as a learning journey, you know. I'm just a person who's just trying to understand life itself and discover what my actual purpose is here on this planet. And there's so many different avenues which you can take and which you can learn along the way. And that's pretty much what I've been doing. So most people know me for, I would say, fitness. I would say most of my following probably joined me on my journey during my days of competing and going to large expos where there were thousands of people. So people had seen me on a competitive side, you know, preparing myself to go on the stage. But there's the other side to me where I've just got this huge curiosity about life itself and almost like mysteries of the unknown. I like to venture into things where people might question or even doubt. And I like to, just venture into different areas. So even on my own podcast, I will interview people that can tell me things that I have no clue about. And one thing I've been looking into in the past couple of years is more my spiritual growth. I think that's probably a bit more, I think that tells more about an individual than what you can physically see. I think a lot of people focus quite heavily on the visual aspect, but I think once you get to understand a person's spiritual strength, you get to understand a bit more about them. But who am I? I don't know. I'm just an enthusiast of life, really. I don't really want to go by any particular title. I just love to learn stuff. Helping me grow so that I can put myself in this planet somewhere where I can help others grow.
That's, I think at some point most of us realize on our journey that we're here to learn, to grow, to share, to give to others, right? And this whole journey, that's what it's all about. But to give a little bit more context to our listeners, like why I contacted you in the first place, you know, how I found you. Well, I found you through another friend of ours, Sergey Young, who is longevity investor and enthusiast. And I looked at your profile, and you obviously have a lot of working out pictures and pictures of your physique. And so you did a lot in competing world when it comes to physique, right? Something like, I guess, to our listeners, the closest term is bodybuilding. right?
Yeah.
That's I'm not sure if you're a bodybuilder or that was your profession, for quite a big chunk of your life, right? Um,
Yeah.
or so it's competing in a world of fitness and being judged on how you are able to build your physical self, right? The proportions, the body fat, and fitness modeling, obviously, also another term that people might be familiar with. So you took quite a lot of titles in UK and I think in the world. I forgot all the titles because there were quite a few. But yeah, that's what you did. I got in touch with you because as a practitioner of a lot of health and fitness theories and research, you achieved quite a lot on the practical side, right? Why I love talking to people who are a lot into physique competitions. I used to be in this world a little bit more, but now not anymore. Just because people like you, and I mean, especially someone at your level, so much of that science more personally and intimately, right? You applied all of it to your body and of course to your mind and all the other sides of self, and you got really amazing results. And so I always like to
Thank you.
bring people who understand science on a more like personal level, right? You didn't just read books about, I don't know, fitness or diets or different nutritional approaches. You actually applied it to self and changed yourself in such a way that you got first prizes everywhere and got noticed. And
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. I think the beginning of my journey was I was into sprinting as a child, and it was one of those where I discovered with friends would be, playing tag and seeing who can get who, that sort of thing. And then I realized I actually had a bit of speed behind me. There was lots of other kids that couldn't catch up with me. And I was like, no, I've got a bit of speed. I'm not too bad. So then when it came to races, I found that I was winning a lot of races. And then from there, I started to take it a bit more seriously, and I'd start to train to become even better. And I remember my dad telling me when I was younger, he was like, if you want to take this seriously, then you need to wake up before everyone else and make sure that you're going and you are training whilst everyone is still asleep. So whilst I was still at school, like younger than 12 years old, I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I was jogging around the park. My dad used to wake up early to go to work. And when he would wake up, he would wake me up and I would be like, okay, yeah, let's get ready. So I'd wake up and I'd go jogging around the park. And when I told my friends that I was doing this, they were like, you're insane. Why would you do that? You can train at any other time. But I was like, but what other time would I have a chance to do it? I'm at school, and then after school, I'm too tired. I have to do homework. I'm not going to be training in the evening. It's better if I just get it done in the morning. So, doing that from childhood, it just started to become such a simple habit for me. I didn't need to think about doing it. It was just my time to wake up. Mm-hmm. And as I started to improve in my speed, I just grew more passionate about it because I was getting results. And one thing which led on to my physique was one of my, let's say, heroes at the time was a sprinter called Linford Christie. Mm-hmm. When I used to watch him in athletics, I used to be in awe just watching him run, and then they will do the replay and they will show the video in slow motion, and then I'd see the ripples of his muscles as he was running, and I was like, wow, he looks amazing. How do I get a body like that? And my dad said, well, you need to lift some weights. And I was like, well, where do I get weights from? And then that's when he bought me some weights. I lived in a bit of a crime-stricken area, so my dad didn't really like me spending too much time out on the street because I could end up getting involved in crime, which I did. I just wasn't. I was lucky enough to not get arrested. But this gave me something to do rather than gallivanting on the street with.
So how old were you when you started lifting?
Well, I really had little weights. I don't know. I would say around 8 years old, to be honest with you. Around 8. It was as I started to get a little bit older, my dad started to buy me more and more weights because I was getting stronger. So the weights which I had was very small, like maybe, I don't know, like 2.5 kilos or something, dumbbell curls, as a kid. It was just something, just for that kind of mental stimulation, knowing that I'm doing something to help myself progress physically. But then as I started to grow into a teenager, a young teen, a slightly older teen, then the weight started to increase. And friends were saying, Roger, you're starting to really put on some muscle. You're starting to look different. And I mean, I knew that I was looking a bit different, but I didn't notice it that much because there was a vision which I had in mind and I was nowhere near there. But in comparison to other kids, I looked like far greater. So it was a bit of a boost for me to know that I was different. I was looking different and that my discipline had paid off. So I guess from there, it was easy to keep up the consistency. I think the competing started at a much later stage of my life. I done fitness just for me. I didn't do it for anyone else. I didn't want recognition for any, from anyone else. I didn't need a trophy. It was not until one day I was subscribing to a magazine called Men's Health. And one day when my new magazine came through the post, I was looking on the front cover and I discovered that there was a guy there that looked quite average. And I was like, this guy looks average. What is he doing on the front cover? Why am I buying a magazine to be inspired by someone that does not look as good as me? And I felt quite disappointed. And I was like, I should be on the front cover. But then I thought to myself, maybe I'm just being a bit too big-headed. I was like, let me just try and get a second opinion on that. Let me ask some friends and people. And I showed them the front cover of this magazine. And I was like, does this guy look better than me? And they were like, no way, you look better than him. And I was like, I don't get it. Like, if I look better than him, how is it he is on the front cover? Like, why is that? And that was when I discovered that, well, nobody knew who I was. So like, if people knew who I was, then that's how he's going to be on the front cover. So that's what kind of started the journey of like, okay, maybe people need to know who I am then in order for me to do that, to get on the front cover. So then I decided to book a photo shoot and I got some images and I started to send it to different magazines and saying like, yeah, I want to be on the front cover, just like that. And I got a response from Men's Health magazine. They actually phoned me up and they said, you have a really good physique. However, we look for bodies which are more obtainable, look a bit more achievable. The whole idea of Men's Health is to give people the idea or at least illusion that they could achieve it. But your body doesn't look achievable. Kudos for the hard work. You look amazing, but I'm sorry, it's too much for Men's Health. And I really didn't know how to take it. It was like a compliment, but at the same time, it was disappointing. I was thinking, you don't actually want someone who looks good to be on the front cover, or someone who looks, I just thought to myself that I look better, not that I thought I looked spectacular. I just knew I looked better than that guy, So I just thought, okay, so what can I do then? When I had these images taken, I decided, let me just give them to some online modeling agencies and see what they thought. And then I was contacted by other photographers who said they wanted to shoot some pictures of me. So I was like, okay, I wouldn't mind some more images. And from there, one of the photographers said to me, have you ever thought about competing? And I was like, no, not at all. So that was what led me to look into competitions. I'm not going to bore you with all of that, but when I started competing, it turned out to be a great success. I didn't get on the front cover of the magazines as I had planned, not at the beginning anyway, but it did initiate a big push to do something within this fitness industry that I was starting to learn. But it was good. It was good. I started to progress quite a lot from there just because of the disappointment on the front cover of the magazine.
Yeah, I guess it was the wrong medium.
Say that again?
The wrong medium, it's like, what's the saying of Einstein? If you judge the fish by her ability to climb a tree, it's going to be a failure. Yeah? But the basic idea is sometimes we want to be on some magazine or some organization, or maybe somebody trying a job, but they're just good, but just not good for that. Like people there looking for something else, and it's not that you were bad or worse. It's just they were looking for a very specific thing. That's I guess my takeaway. That I'm getting a lot of no's too, but for me now it's like because I'm destined for something different, not for this. That's what I'm, always, when I hear a guest speaking, I always try to bring something like really valuable to people, no matter what they do, whether they're into fitness or not. And so, you're part of the story. Yeah, it was known for the covers, but it led you to a completely different area where you excel.
Yeah, it helped me to discover more about myself, and there's a lot of those door closing situations which it makes certain people stronger, and I was used to a lot of rejection as a child. So it wasn't something that was completely alien to me. I just knew I had to work harder. As I mentioned earlier, I lived in a poverty-stricken area. My dad was poor. He didn't have much money. So we had to work extra hard. Sometimes I would have to do some labor with him in order to make some money. And so hard work for me was just standard. It wasn't a problem. And someone else's opinion of me doesn't have to be my fact. So I was like, okay, well, if they don't want to accept me, then I'm sure someone else will. And another thing that happened was I was trying to discover, like, okay, so when I started competing and I was winning trophies, and
I think you won the first one, right, that you competed in.
Yeah, that was Mr. UK. That was an amazing moment for me, almost like a defining moment for me, because I really wanted to win, I guess just like anyone in their first show. But then as the competition was getting close to the end, I started to doubt myself, because I don't know, I just felt like other people had better potential than me, and I started to doubt myself. And right at the end of the show, when they started to announce third place all the way down to first place, it was such a big moment of anticipation. And they were like, okay, and first place winner is, and it was a massive pause. And then they called my name. And when they called my name, I didn't register that it was actually me, even though they said my name, because I was already in strong doubt that I was not going to win. So I had planned this, how can I put it? I'd planned to myself that I was just going to cheer the person on and appreciate that at least I took part in the sport. So then when they called my name, I just started to clap, and I was like, well done, well done. And all the other competitors was looking around, and then one of them looked at me and they were like, isn't your name Roger Snipes? I was like, yeah, that's right. And I continued to clap, still not paying attention to what happened. And then I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, that's me. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And I was almost in tears, because I really couldn't believe that I'd won this competition, like my first competition. And, it was almost like great validation for me, because I did get a lot of strength from my dad, but at the same time, he didn't believe in a lot of the things that I was doing. Like with the sprinting, he knew that I had a talent, but as far as he was concerned, sprinting wasn't going to put food on the table. So just quit wasting your time with that, basically. So that was one of the reasons why I stopped that. But I just had this passion for fitness and just continued doing it without knowing, okay, what is going to be the end result? I just know I felt good doing it. So when I actually achieved something from my hard work, based on just all the years of effort that I'd put in, it was a real gratifying moment for me. What's quite interesting is even with everything that I was winning, and I end up in like loads of different magazines, I was like, okay, so where am I going with this? What is the point of this? Like, what do I do with this? What do I do? And I decided, okay, maybe I should become a personal trainer, because loads of people, I remember the first time somebody said, are you a PT? I had no idea what a PT was. I was like, I thought when they said, are you a PT? I thought they meant part-time. And I was like, no, I work full-time. And they were like, no, as in personal trainer. I was like, personal trainer? What's that? And they were like, well, you train other people to be fit, just like yourself. And I was like, I still don't get it. Are you suggesting that people will pay me to show them to do exactly what I do? And they're like, yeah. I was like, that still doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't somebody just take care of themselves? I don't understand. This is not making sense to me. When I discovered that was actually a job, I was like, I can't believe it. People will pay me to tell them to take care of themselves. I'm in. It just seems so bizarre. So I remember the first few jobs that I applied for, I'd never done personal training work before, but I knew a lot about getting in shape, and I didn't get the jobs. They were like, sorry, you don't have any work experience. And I was like, yeah, I know that, but I've been training for 16 years. So surely that accounts for something. And they're like, yeah, sorry, that's not good enough. And I remember one of the interviews that I went to, it was like a group interview. So there was loads of other people that were there. It happened to be in the same gym that I was training at. I failed in the interview, but I was still training there. And I saw one of the people that was successful in the interview, and it was some young guy he was actually 16 years old, but he had a little bit of work experience, more than me. I had 16 years worth of actual training experience, and he probably just passed his training course and had like a few months of experience, and he got the job. I think about a week later, he left the job. He was like, this is too much. And then while I was training, one of the managers came to me and said, are you still looking for a job? I was looking for a job, but I felt disrespected, all my years of experience, they weren't interested in. They just wanted this paperwork, and knowing that I'd trained others and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, no, it's all right. No, I'm good. But I was actually unemployed, to be honest with you. I needed a job, but I don't know. I guess the universe was on my side, because shortly afterwards I did find a job in a really nice place in Canary Wharf, which is a very kind of
that's where you still live.
Oh, okay. You might know Reebok Sports Club. It was a gym back in the day. They've rebranded now to they're called Third Space.
Third Space, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So so I was working there. It was amazing. I was earning great money. It was really interesting because, as I said, I was winning these competitions, and I had all these trophies. I then got sponsored by a national massive sports brand, and I was there was these big cardboard cutouts of me in these supplement shops. People were stopping me on the street, asking me for photos, but yet I couldn't get a job. Imagine, like, it's like, yeah, sorry, you're not experienced enough. Yeah, but like, people are really knowing me. This might be good for your brand. Yeah, that's not good enough. We don't care.
Yeah,
And
a
I
lot
was
of it
like,
is
wow.
paperwork. Yeah, you're right.
I'm sorry?
A lot of it is about paperwork and having their specs met, whatever they were like.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you did really well. All these no's and rejections seem to put you on a really good path.
Yeah. I just, I felt as though there's definitely something good for me out there. I don't know what it was. I just had this voice speaking to me. Oh, there's something great for you out there. Don't worry. You just keep pushing. And that's how it's been all up until now. I feel as if I'm just scraping the very surface of potential that I have.
Yeah. So you basically at the age of, I think, 31, right? You got your first title. And then for the next, how many years were you in the competing world?
I competed. I competed until 2015. That was my last competition. So just trying to think. It was, just like 5 years, 5 or 6 years, 6 years of competing. And then I thought to myself, competing is great. It's been fun. And I proved to myself that I can win titles. And, with all the competitions and the different sponsorships that I got, I've had some really, really great opportunities. I've been at some international expos. I've been invited to different workshops, different speaking events, and just kind of telling people about my journey, really, and what I've learned along the way. I thought to myself, I don't really need to compete anymore. I think this is good. I mean, some people, they want to be on the Olympia stage. That was never really my dream. I just wanted to prove to myself that I was worthy enough for the stage to get some trophies, and also to break myself out of this shell, because I was a little bit shy, a bit self-conscious when I started this whole fitness journey. But I always had this this thing of, jump first, and then what's the expression? Jump from the hills and grow your wings all the way down, or something.
There is another one, like jump or fly or like fall and the net will appear, something like that.
Yeah. So an analogy around that sort of thing, like, or what's the other one? With the gun, cock, shoot, then aim. So rather than cock, aim, then shoot, just shoot first, aim later. Like, don't take too much time to think about it, otherwise you will just think yourself out of it. So I most of the time tend to go by intuition. If I'm feeling a certain way, I'm like, okay, deal with the intuition before my thinking brain gets involved. Once the prefrontal cortex gets involved and starts calculating, and it's like, okay, is this really a good calculated decision? I don't want to wait for that to kick in, because it might not seem like a logically good idea. I'm just going to do it.
Most great achievements do not seem like a good idea at first to no one ever.
Yeah. I was recently reading, I haven't gone through all of it, but reading a book by Will Smith, his new book called Bill. And he actually talks about much of that, in how he's this real, he's a big dreamer in the way he thinks. And, a lot of his youth, many people were saying, like, he's got these crazy ideas, and he was like, sometimes it's good when you can just remain in that dreamy land and don't conform to everybody's structured ideas. I mean, he put it in a real kind of decorative, beautiful way, but That's the way I feel. I feel as though I have a real fairy tale thought process sometimes, and it's beautiful. Like, I know that there's going to be issues along the way, but I'm one of those people that I always focus on the solutions before the problem arrives, so that the problem is never a problem. It's like, yeah, people are like, yeah, but what about this? What about that? I'm like, oh, yeah, don't worry about that. That's going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm the same kind of person. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because a lot of people are stuck by that. They're thinking about all the possible problems that can arise in their way, and that pile of problems becomes so big that their mind cannot take actions towards that, because like there are so many problems possible, and so people never take action. So and that's what I notice among people like yourself who achieve a lot. People just go for it, and then there are problems and challenges, but you deal with it along the way. It's not like the whole pile going to come to you at the beginning, all of it at once.
Yeah. I think it's really important to realize and know that you're going to be faced with challenges. And I think once you know that, life becomes so much easier. You just expect to get some form of pain. I remember I was living this fairy tale belief that when I found the person I loved, we was going to live together forever. And then I was heartbroken, and it was really, really, really painful. But I learned that you can mend after that. There is life after a bad relationship. And I was like, do you know what? It's not too bad. And it's actually helped me to realize the sort of relationship that I don't want to get into. And the person that I will find next will get a better version of me, because I've been through certain experiences. And I've learned that through so many things in life. So whenever problems are arising, I'm like, okay, cool, good. All right, bring it. I need some of this. It's the challenges. It helps to build a bigger picture for us. It's part of the journey. It's part of the glue to stick us together. It's what helps us to be more anti-fragile. Like we get these battle wounds along the way, and just helps us to, we get a few scars, but we then build an immunity against that. So you just get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in self-development learn that we learn through failures, through challenges, through tough times. We do not learn or grow through times when everything is just good. That just doesn't happen for human beings, unfortunately. When everything goes well, we're lucky, we're good. Let it be. Only the challenging times, the tough times teach us a lot. And so about challenging times, I actually, got a few questions about challenges, like on your way specifically, like someone like yourself, building physical body, physique, or exceeding your own like limitations that you maybe saw before or thought about before, like growing in that area, like what are the challenges that maybe you had to overcome to build your physical fitness and mental fitness and, win world titles and then move up on your journey?
I guess
challenges,
people that were not as willing as myself, because I'm definitely a dreamer in a sense that there's so many things that I aim for, which is just like, I can see it in the spirit, even though physically it doesn't look very close to where I want to be. I just have that real kind of dreamy mindset. And if you share that with other people who don't see similar to you, then it could be quite detrimental once they start to feed you their fears. So there's been people along the way who don't have that sort of understanding of themselves to share the same sort of strength that you have for yourself. So because of their doubts for themselves, you then can easily adopt that sort of behavior. So I would say that along the journey, there had been some maybe moments where I could have been a bit quicker in the process, but listening to others, like a crappy relationship, it slowed me down because I was with someone who was very pessimistic and didn't have that sort of view on herself where she wanted to be. So the moment I was out of that, because when you're in a relationship, you understand that it should be a team, like you work together. So if you're growing, you want to make that person grow as well. It's like, oh my God, I've got these amazing us. But if they don't see that, it's like, oh man, this is hard work. You're carrying the both of you. And then it gets to a point where you just become so exhausted to the point where you say, what's the point? And what's the point on yourself as well? Like you don't give yourself as much energy, as much belief as you should do. But I would say that's the only real challenge when you start to adopt other people's weaknesses. But then once I started to focus a bit more on self-development, I realized that I could love myself a little bit more. So the moment I started to love myself a lot more, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Almost to the point where I don't care what anyone says, like even if it's family, I'm doing everything for me. And then I'll think about everyone else afterwards. And up until this day, I will still be that way, even if it involves my kids. Like, I know that I've got their interest at heart always. But in order for me to be my best, I need to think about me first so that I can give them my best. So, that stupid analogy that everyone says, when you're on a plane, what does it say? What's the instructions? Everybody uses that now. Yeah. But there's so much validity to that, where you need to be strong. If you're going to help anyone, you need to be strong yourself. So, I've got this real philanthropy kind of mission where I feel as though I've got a massive mission for this planet in order to help people grow. But in order for that to happen, I need to be almost like a superhero to people. So I need to be anti-fragile. If lots of turbulence is coming my way, then I need to be able to embrace that and brush it off and be able to step back on the mission, even if I fall down, get back up as soon as possible. And, it comes with practice through falling over lots of times, being hurt, but always being prepared to learn from it and adapt and overcome and not allow it to hold you down. And sometimes you can learn from others when you see how people who've gone through some stuff, like years prior to wherever they are, and they're still holding on to that. Like, I had a traumatic relationship 20 years ago, so now I can't trust anyone. 20 years ago, you haven't got over it. Come on. You've had enough time to seek therapy or read some books or something, but people don't work on themselves. And I think it's really important to take at least a moment to work on your mindset every day before you focus on everyone else in the world. For me, in the morning is my time. I wake up earlier to focus on me. I'll take my daughter to school, but before I focus on my daughter, I have to wake up for me first. I need to prime myself for the day. I need to fortify myself so that I can give her the best of me. If I just wake up still in a dream state, trying to give my daughter everything that I have when I haven't really done anything for myself, that's depleting my energy and not giving her my best. for instance. So I know in order for me to do good for the world, I need to focus on me first. Wake up early, do some breathing, some meditation. And now I do some brain training in the morning. I do some red light therapy. I'm sorry?
What time do you wake up?
4:30, sometimes 4. At a stage, I was waking up at 3:30, but then it started to become a bit difficult. And I was like, okay, 4:30, 4:30, 4 o'clock. And that's quite easy for me. I can
for
do
me
that.
Too, it's like 4, I'm ready to go.
It feels amazing. You feel like you're getting up before the world. And whilst everyone's like, getting up at 6 or 7, feeling proud of themselves, that's like a half day for you. I'm like, man, I've got through so many emails. I've written programs. I've done my social media posts and, you've done so many things. It just feels good. And I think when you do that, especially priming yourself, like really getting your mind ready, just with the breathing exercises and just a bit of like visualization.
Do you use priming by Tony Robbins by any chance?
I'm sorry?
There is an exercise, priming by Tony Robbins. I use it every morning. It's called priming, and I thought maybe you use it too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's directly from Tony Robbins. I've read a few of his books. I can't even remember the names of them, to be honest. Something The Giant Within or something. The Giant Within. I can't remember. Stuff by Les Brown, Eric Thomas, Brian Tracy. Love Brian Tracy. He really helped me at the beginning of my life. Shall I say my personal development journey. Bob Proctor, another incredible person. But yeah, they all teach these things really in terms of different ways of priming yourself and getting yourself ready for the world. Because so many people, they just wake up and all they're thinking about is work. Before bed, they're looking at emails and they go to sleep thinking of emails, wake up and they think about work or emails. And it's like, no wonder you're depressed. No wonder you're taking, these suppressants to try and get rid of pain. It's like you've not found any time for you. So.
And sorry to interrupt. You were actually saying you were talking about your routine and how it goes in the morning. So continue if you have other things you do in the morning as a part of your routine.
I think the main thing for me is my red light therapy with sort of like meditation. So I've got these crystals which I'll have around me, some energy healing crystals. I'll have them around me and I'll lay underneath my red light therapy and I'll do some deep breathing and meditation, visualizing myself, being the best version of me. I have these like fairy tale visualizations, which I do. And it just, it's just fantastic. After I do that, then I go for a cycle. I cycle for an hour, normally 10 miles. And then during that time, I'll listen to a podcast or an audiobook as a form of education. But before I go for the cycle, I'll do my brain training as well. So it could be some working on my reading, writing, maths, and just all of that sort of stuff, just to get my cognition working. Like for me, I done a genetics test one time, and on that test, it showed that I have one of my predispositions is the ApoE4 gene, which is for Alzheimer's. So I have one copy of those. So for me, making sure that I'm doing everything I can to keep in optimal health, especially when it comes to my brain, I'm all about that. So I don't want to have any kind of, I want my glymphatic system to be working during the night. So to make sure that I'm getting high quality sleep, taking magnesium or wearing blue light blocking glasses, just making sure that quality sleep is in place. So I don't have any kind of plaque, build up. and just making sure I'm always reading and that I am constantly learning stuff. Not to try and overwhelm myself, but to just make sure that I'm always learning something new and that I'm always inquisitive. So, that part of my health is always in place. So I think those are the main ones. I do some other stuff as well, but I would say those are the main ones.
And so, we are coming to the end of this hour. So maybe for this part of our interview, you could share a little bit about your nutrition and training these days, because obviously, when people look at you, they want to know, like, I want to know what this guy does, what he eats, what he does for exercise. So could you share a little bit of that, please? Your routine probably is what people are most curious about. And then maybe a little bit about like why you do it the way you do it.
Yeah. So I've been training for almost 30 years now. And throughout the years, I've tried like loads of different training systems. And I found that when I was competing, I was heavily focused on making sure that I was following a certain routine to make sure that I was building the most aesthetic body, which was pleasing for the stage. The moment I decided to hang up the belt on competing, I would say fell back in love with training again, because I didn't need to do that for anyone else. I was just doing it for me. So I just decided to go to the gym and just train and just enjoy it. So when it comes to training, I literally go by the way I feel. I go to the gym and I'm like, okay, what am I feeling today? I'll also look in the mirror and I'll think to myself, okay, what do I feel visually needs some focus from an aesthetic perspective. And then I'll just kind of gauge it that way. And then I'll just start training. So that is pretty much how my training is. Now, when I'm working with clients, I would never be that way. I would more tailor it to whatever their goals are and almost teach them to gain this sort of intuitive perspective on training so that they can then take what I'm teaching them and they can do it by themselves. So that they can walk in the gym and be like, okay, how am I feeling today? I also take this approach with my nutrition. I go by feeling. One of the key focuses for me is to make sure that I do have lots and lots of vegetables on the plate. So I spend quite a lot of money when it comes to vegetables. I'm always buying vegetables. Cycling to the shop to buy more vegetable, because it's always running out. And it decomposes quickly. So, you either have to eat it quickly or it just gets consumed quickly. So you're always going to the shop. And for me, it's cool because me cycling back to the shop, it means more cardio. I don't drive. Even if it's raining, I will cycle to the shop. So it's a win-win, really. My protein sources normally comes from animal protein. I normally aim for some sort of pasture-raised or grass-fed type of meat.
Mostly beef, I assume.
I do have some beef. So it could be beef fillets, some lamb, some mince, some chicken, some different ranges of fish as well, seafood. I just try and mix it up however I'm feeling. So I'll try and focus on getting as much different, not just macro, but micronutrients. Lots of people focus quite heavily on macronutrients, but I'm always thinking to myself, what micros am I having as well? So if I'm feeling, it's very rare that I'm feeling under the weather, to be honest with you, because I'm so in tune with how I'm feeling. And I know that if I eat certain garbage food, which I do every once in a while, it's part of my strategy. I'm like, okay, I need a bit of dopamine fix from some crappy food. What am I going to have? And what is going to be the mitigation strategy when I do have it? So let's say if I'm going to eat some pizza, which is going to be high glycemic, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go for a cycle afterwards or a walk afterwards. Or I might have something to help to detoxify. You know, if I'm going to have some other sorts of ingredients on the side, which might, I don't know. Sometimes I'll sprinkle some orange peel on there, or I'll just have some random stuff on my pizza. You know, I might buy some chicken, but it might not be organic. I might be like, okay, I want something quick. I'll get some ready cooked chicken on there. I'm like, okay, this is some GMO chicken, right? Okay, this is not the best, but okay, what am I going to be doing to help to detoxify, for instance? So maybe I'll have some glutathione or some activated charcoal. Or I tend to use the sauna anyway, but maybe I'll use the sauna the next day afterwards with some chlorella with spirulina. And I've been told that if you put some essential amino acids, that kind of helps to amplify the absorption of the toxins or bind the toxins to get rid of it. So I always think about these types of things as well. And post-training, I don't always have a protein shake, you know, contrary to some popular belief. You know, oh, you got muscles. What protein shake do you have? What gainers? And I'm like, you know, I might have some, but I don't have it on a regular basis. I'm very excited about actual food.
What would you say, like, you know, for your frame and weight, like, what's your weight? I read online, it's like, I don't know, 100 kilos, but I'm not sure if that's, you know, correct or not. And you have a lot of muscle mass, right? So what would you say, like, the amount of protein that you eat per day? Because, you know, that's the, like, most often question I'm asked, like, how much protein do you eat?
Yeah. It's, you know what's quite interesting is that it's been a number of years since I've actually calculated the amount of protein that I eat. I no longer do that.
What about like in foods, like maybe half a kilo or more,
sometimes it might be that, but I found that ever since I started intermittent fasting, the portions are so small. Sometimes I question how I manage to keep so much muscle. So let me see, like, yesterday, for instance, I might have had like 2 chicken breast fillets for the entire day with like lots of vegetables. And I had some nuts with that and a drink which have lots of, it's like a Reds drink. It's called Reds, which has
greens
all these
and probably,
berries and stuff. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people are like, who say things like, if you train strenuously, you should have like at least a pound per gram of body weight or something. A gram per pound. Yeah. So that would mean I'm around 235 pounds. And I don't think I have the equivalent of my, you know, in protein for my body weight. It would be far less. Lots of people focus, especially bodybuilders, they might wake up and within the first half an hour, they're consuming something with some protein in it, oats, and let me put some protein in there. And then 2 hours later, let's eat again, you know, and all the way up until just before bed. And it's a lot of strain on the digestive tract. And as I'm sure you know, a lot of oxidative stress, really. And I think just that in itself doesn't give you enough time to repair, for your body to work efficiently. If you give your body enough time to rest, when you do eat, your body's going to be working far better with the digestive enzymes as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Maintenance versus building, because I hear this advice a lot from people who already built muscle mass. They're like, oh, you don't need that much protein. But my point is that might not be the best advice for someone who is working on building muscle, who might never had it. What do you think?
Maintenance or building? Okay, so I can't remember, what was the first thing you was mentioning? What was the first thing you mentioned? About eating protein earlier in the day. That's quite interesting. Yeah. What I've read is I'm not too sure about times of when is the best time to eat your protein, but what I read, and I can't remember what source I read it from. I think it could have been from Dr. Benjamin Bickman. I think that might be his name. I'm not too sure. That it's best to consume, like if you have a plate full of food, consume the protein first, because maybe it's to do with the digestive enzymes, works on that first, or like your body absorbs it better. You don't want to like infiltrate or flood your bloodstream with too much carbohydrates, and it will slow down when you're consuming the protein or something. I can't remember, but eat the protein first, and then the rest afterwards. So I do tend to do that when I'm eating my food. I'll focus on the protein first, and if my body decides it's not really interested in the rest, I'm like, okay, cool. We'll work around that. But yeah, I always think to myself, if anyone's going to be working on building muscle, just focus on, you should do that all the time anyway. There shouldn't be just a building phase and then afterwards a maintenance phase. Like there's lots of people who focus on doing bulking, which I think is trash. I think bulking was given birth in the whole bodybuilding era, when people were eating a crazy amount of surplus and then focus on cutting calories to get in shape. And I think that if you want to put on muscle, then just have a small surplus, just maybe 350 calories or something like that surplus, maybe up to 500. Just, you don't need to go stupid, and just train hard. It's not rocket science, really. Just train hard. I would say heavy lifting, but at the same time, just make sure that you're doing it safe. But it's not just heavy lifting. There's different ways, like working on the eccentric phase quite heavily. It's said that most of your muscle growth happens in the eccentric. So if you're just focusing quite heavily on just shifting the weight and your eccentric is not really in place, then you could be wasting a lot of time when you go in the gym, doing lots of isometric holds as well. So
and eccentric phase, for people who might not understand the term, is when, for example, if you do bicep curl, so the eccentric is when you lower the weight.
Correct. Right? Yeah.
It's what people usually don't focus on. They're like, I'll just drop it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially guys, the ego lifting, where they go in the gym and they're quite happy and content to know that they've shifted some heavy weight. And then they post it on their Instagram or their freaking TikTok account or whatever. But it's all about getting your body to want to evolve. And it's like, why is it going to want to evolve? Your body wants to evolve through some form of stress. And if your body questions whether it can get through this and it needs to evolve through the situation, through some form of stress, then you're winning. You're not just trying to focus on moving the weight, because like, even if you have been given a program and it says, okay, 3 sets of 10, if you are not becoming fatigued by, let's say, the 7th rep, then it's a waste of time. You want to be fatiguing by the 7th or the 6th and really pushing yourself to the end. If you're not, then you need to up the weight, or you need to, just up the weight, or you can just increase the amount of eccentric, or add some like an isometric hold on there. You have to be creating some form of stress in the exercise.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't even remember what the question was. What was the question?
Well, I do remember the question, but what you said was also very interesting.
Right.
The question I had in mind was actually about what I noticed from my clients and my own journey is, once you build your muscle mass, like once you reach your goal, it's much easier to maintain it with less, for example, protein and nutrition, compared to when you're trying to build that muscle mass, that you might need more protein. So I'm talking about protein amount recommendations, right? I think from my experience, so that's what I was asking for your experience, that might be variable based on that.
I guess everybody's got a different approach to it. In terms of protein, I think it's very important for many reasons, not just for muscle building, for neurotransmitters, for so many different things. I think that's, the staple of the diet, like to make sure protein is there, and healthy fats, carbohydrates. You can play around with that depending on the different body types. But like, one of my key focuses with clients is just understanding that food contains information, and just like reading a book, it's about what information you are feeding yourself. So if people are going to be focusing so heavily on macronutrients, it's they're missing the bigger picture. So once you start to just eat healthy, your body will start to move in the right direction, and you're not going to be putting on any unnecessary fat. It's very rare that you will overconsume a steak, for instance. It can happen on ice cream, packets of crisps, chips, all those carbohydrates, or even fruits for that matter. But like a steak, a plain boiled chicken, you're not going to go to your, functional medicine doctor and be like, just overconsume boiled chicken. I've put on so much fat, because your body is going to be nourished. It's going to have what it needs. And, you're not going to overconsume vegetables either, really. So once you have a healthy diet, you don't really need to focus so much on, okay, what's the macro intake here and there? Because you're just eating good food. You're eating whole, good foods, and you can just eat until your heart's content. The moment you start to think about flavorings and condiments and sugars, then that's when you need to be a bit more careful with the foods that you are consuming.
Yeah, on the emulsifiers and flavorings, other stuff that people use to make food exciting. When I even advise people to eat, to design their new healthy diet, I'm like, create meals that are boring, that you kind of like, but not too much. And that's, make them out of whole foods, and you'll be in a really good place, because once you're in a place where you like your food, but it's not too exciting, you're going to consume just the right amount, because nothing going to override your satiety signal in the brain and make you consume more.
I think so, yeah. And just to add to that, I think that the thing which can override the satiety signal is mainly when it comes to sweet stuff. Because, ancestrally, that was our thing, we'd be consuming lots and lots of fruits in hope to put on lots of weight during the fasting period. But now we're in a different time and era where we have lots of sweet stuff with a, how can I put it? Almost like with a prehistoric system, believing that we still need to overconsume to survive a fasting period, whereas we have to almost synthetically create a fasting period because we have an abundance of food. So our body doesn't understand that we don't need to overconsume the sweet stuff. But, because of that, we just automatically, the moment is, and that's what's mainly put in condiments. Let's say tomato ketchup, for instance, they put sugar in it to override these signals. So we put it on the food, we consume more. You take it out of the food, you'll eat a lot less. Why? Because you are full. You're not fooling yourself anymore. So
Did you know on that note, a funny fact that I also learned from one of the neuroscience I'm subscribed to? He said that we have sweet receptors, not just in our mouth, but actually in our gut. So even if you don't taste sweetness in your mouth, your gut gonna taste it and you're gonna consume more of that food. So if, for example, somebody puts sugar but hides it with salt, you might not taste the sweetness in the mouth, but your gut will know it's there and you're gonna crave more of that food.
No doubt. I mean, the body converts normal carbohydrates into sugar anyway. And I think you find that when you eat certain carbohydrate-rich foods, you will start craving it a bit more. I find it fascinating. That if I'm doing a cyclical, or should I say carb cycling, so I might have a few days with no carbs. The moment I have carbs, that's the time when I actually want to eat more food, even though I've just eaten more food. I've eaten more food and my body wants even more food. It's quite fascinating. I'm fully aware of it and I have to override it with my own brain. Like, okay, relax, stop getting super excited. That's all you're having, But unless you are fully aware of these signals, it's so easy to just keep consuming and consuming.
Yeah. And Roger, I think here we're gonna stop our conversation, even though we can dig so deep into nutrition stuff, in food. It just got so complicated in our today's world. And I want to be respectful of your time, and our listeners probably also have things to do. So it was an amazing conversation. I learned so much about, mental side of achieving that kind of physical, mastery. And then also on nutrition side, I learned a lot from you and, what you're doing right now, because obviously people see and they think, oh, this guy's probably just eats protein and, and whatever, and he just stays in that shape. So I could, ask you so many questions again, but thank you already for your time. And I'm sure listeners learned a lot. And the last question, I have for you is, where can people find you? You have a book, Your Mind Builds Your Body. You have a very popular Instagram account. Anything else, like where you would like people to go to learn more about you?
Right. Okay, cool. I as you said, Instagram, that's where I engage with a lot of my followers. I also have a Facebook, but that's for the prehistoric people. I do have a TikTok, but let's forget about that. I don't use it. I use Twitter as well. And I also interview people. So I have a podcast as well, which is on life hacks. It did start off quite heavily around fitness, understanding the science of fitness, where I would have naturopathic practitioners, nutritional therapists, and functional medicine doctors and scientists. But now I have on board like different types of experts in different areas, like coaches, for instance, in I don't know, like building a business and entrepreneurs. So I've had, like a couple of millionaires on there, a couple of authors on there, people that are, what do you call those? Activists in different areas. So I try to keep it nice and broad, almost like if you're listening to a radio station and you just want just some varied stuff. That's pretty much my podcast, really. So yeah, as you mentioned, my book, I've also got it on Audible. It is not my voice, though. I hired someone to do it because I wanted to do it. When I speak into my publisher, they were like, "Oh, you got a great voice, listening to your podcast, I think it will be great." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And I was just so busy. They kept saying, like, "Have you recorded anything yet?" And I recorded bits and pieces, but it just wasn't enough.
It's a lot of work.
So we got to the point where we just scrapped it and we just hired someone else. I had like these vocal artists. I don't know what they're called, and I was listening to the voice which I found sounded the sexiest, and I was like, okay, I'll go with him. I like him.
Yeah, I'm gonna link all of that, by the way, in the show notes, so listeners can easily find that. And on your voice, you have amazing voice. I was like, you probably do some training for your voice too.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You have one of those, radio voices, like, I don't know, that you can easily listen to for hours. Anyhow, so again, Roger, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add to at the end for our listeners, to take away, to get value from?
No, I think that's it. I think what we can do, we definitely can do another. There's lots we can talk about in terms of like spirituality. That's one thing which I